so pretty. So I didn't want like, she came early. I said, it was just 15 minutes, we give each other money like that. And they were like, come early. So I've been sitting there like, yeah, 15 minutes, same could like that. It was easy. Yeah, I was up first. I was up first. Yeah, but that way, who knows? I'm always here early. I get here 5:10. Talk to Mary.
Had you gotten the state lady to come that day?
She called up, she might. So what do you want to do?
Maybe we have to have it without Mary.
Maybe we should, because you guys have to represent. And when the state lady comes, they'll take care of that. And then the rest of it, just have discussions.
It's kind of good when friends.
We're going to go with the 20th, okay?
Because I just put the agenda in my little notebook.
She's not representing.
No, I don't want to go back to the state argument.
So she's coming. Hi, Alex.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Community Board 1 is now called to order. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski, Lisa Bamonte, Louis Baracelli, Gina Barros, Eric Brazaitis, Tom Burrows, Iris Cabrera, Phil Caponegro, Frank Carbone, Stephen Chesler, Michael Chiricella, Teresa Cinciata, Joshua Cohn, Arthur Dibanowski, T. Willis Elkins, Julia Amanda Foster, Samuel Fransos, Chairperson Fuller, Emily Gallagher, Vincent Gangone, Solomon Green, Joel Gross, Sonia Iglesia, Moisha Indig, Bozina Kaminsky, Avram Katz, Ryan Coonan, Yoel Landau, Marie Lianza, Yoel Lowe, Trina McKeever, Toby Moskowitz, Martin Needleman, Simon Newstein, Rabbi Niederman, Karen Nieves, Mario Domerick, Janice Peterson, Dana Racklin, Michael Gary Schlesinger, Isaac Sofer, Robert Solano, James Stewart, Del Teague, Tommy Torres, Maria Vieta, Stephen Weidberg, Simon Weiser, Tessa Wilson. 18 members answering the call.
Thank you, Jerry. Can I have an approval of the agenda, please? Trina? Phil, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Public session is now we're now in public session. First item on the agenda is unenclosed sidewalk at 715 Lorimer Street. Unenclosed sidewalk, 715 Lorimer Street. Is there anyone here to present on that item?
Hi, how are you?
Pass this out.
Yes.
You can start.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah. Just waiting for Blair.
Pardon me?
I'm just waiting for Blair. 1 second.
I don't think we have time for you to stand and wait for her to give out all her materials. In the future, when you come and you got material to give it out before the board meeting starts, and put it on all the tables that has the board member plate on it
Sure.
in the future.
Okay, so we're here for an application for a sidewalk license. It's for, the restaurant is Becco. Enrique is a new owner of it. He's taken over ownership. And the seating and the hours are all going to remain the same.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an unenclosed sidewalk at 258 Franklin LLL, 258 Franklin Street. Is there anyone here? Well, you can just. All the tables that have the board member plaques on them.
This is also a sidewalk unenclosed. They're changing the amount of seats they have. They're only going to be having seating on Eagle, not on Franklin anymore. The business has been open and operating for 6 years.
Thank you.
This is Eagle Street It's Eagle Trading Company. It's on Eagle and Franklin. They're actually just decreasing the amount of seats they have, not changing hours or anything.
What are you applying for?
We're applying for an outdoor seating, sidewalk, unenclosed.
You're reducing the seating, right? Are you reducing the seating out?
Yeah, we're reducing the seating.
What are you here for? You just reduce it. Why, you licensed for that? To reduce?
We're getting a new one.
Why? Renewal?
Yeah. Hours, everything else stays the same.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? No. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is King Luke. Sidewalk, unenclosed sidewalk. King Luke. 81 Broadway. Is there anyone here to present on that item? Next item on the agenda is the unenclosed sidewalk cafe, 113 Franklin Street.
Hi, it's just a renewal. We have 8 tables, 16 seats. Operating hours are the same, no change.
Yes, Trina.
That's Threes Brewing, Franklin and Kent. Threes Brewing Outpost at Franklin and Kent on Franklin Street.
What's your time of operation?
Sorry, what?
What's your time of operation?
Inside till 2, outside till the stipulation, I think it's 11.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, who's Threes Brewing?
It's Clue at DBA. 3.
Oh, okay, that's.
Sorry about that, yeah. It's,
Did you bring your applications?
I have all my DCA applications.
Oh, you're a renewal.
It's a
Go.
renewal.
Oh, you're a renewal?
It's
Yeah,
a
go
renewal.
Oh, okay.
I have copies if you want.
Yeah,
Go.
you did what you're supposed to.
You're good.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is unenclosed sidewalk cafe, 271 Metropolitan Avenue. 271 Metropolitan Avenue.
Hi.
Sign up duty.
Okay, you gotta sign both. Thank you.
My name is Steve Wygoda. I'm an architect, and we're reapplying. We withdrew our application. We're reapplying for a reduced number of seats for at the intersection of Metropolitan and Driggs. And Heather is here. Heather is the owner as well. Just say hello. Yeah.
Hi, we've been open since July, and yeah, we'd like to get our sidewalk cafe open for summer.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You have a question, Ron?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Why did we say no before?
Don't say it
No,
out
we-
loud.
How do we say it?
That for 47 seats, whatever, right? That's the last time.
It was 72 before, now we're reduced it, yeah.
This is Butcher's daughter, right?
What?
Butcher's daughter is the.
Butcher's daughter.
Oh, I remember her. Yeah.
She wasn't there.
No, it was
Oh, I
a
remember you.
it was a
I remember you, that's
We
right.
argued.
We argued a little bit about it, right? Is it a different owner?
Same owner. So David is the owner, he was there,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he was there.
and Heather and David refused.
Got it.
So Heather flew in. Yeah, it's a big corner.
I'm sorry, what was the reason we did that last time?
There was opposition.
The people from around the corner, the historical wall.
Oh, they came hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now it's, how long ago was that? It's like
6 months ago, 6, 7.
Yeah.
May or April.
Yeah, so we were asked to withdraw and we withdrew it. We were asked to withdraw
I
and
got
we
it.
withdrew.
Got it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions?
Nobody heard your conversation. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Pardon me?
Oh, the mic is off.
The question was, why did they deny it before? We never heard the answer.
Oh, the mic is off.
The mic is not on?
So, yeah, so we had submitted about 6 months ago, there was opposition. We withdrew the application. We voluntarily withdrew the application, redid the layout, reduced the number of seating, and refiled fresh with DCA.
If I may.
Yes,
Hello? How many for outdoor seating?
Yes,
How many seats?
we will have 54 seats. It's the entire corner of Metropolitan and Driggs. We had 72 before.
It's a new application? It's a new application?
It's a brand-new application. The other one was withdrawn.
So wait, is the restaurant open now? Do you have a license now?
Yes, it's open.
So you just requested for the outdoor space?
Yes.
Do you have signatures from the neighbors?
Do you have signatures? Not yet.
are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is 470 Driggs Avenue. 470 Driggs Avenue.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a nice night. My name is Michael Wallows, and I'm going to introduce my colleagues in just a second. We're presenting on 470 Driggs Avenue. This is an experience. It's a gaming experience called Passport to Iron City. Yes? And I'm not going to do this justice, so I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues to tell you about what the experience is. But I just wanted to tell you why we're here. There is a part of this experience that we are seeking a temporary beer and wine license for. And what we're looking for from the board is a letter of no objection to these temporary licenses for this experience that ends on March 17th. There's a timing issue, which is why we're going this route. And I'd like to thank Tom and Jerry and Officer Molina for taking some time and really giving this a lot of thought. If you don't mind me introducing my colleagues, they can tell you a little bit about what the experience is, and then we can return back to me. Sandy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Wu. I'm from the Seelig Group, and we're co-producing the event called Passport to Iron City. So the concept of it is that it's an immersive event where we are excuse me, immersing guests into the world of Alita Battle Angel, which is a film from 20th Century Fox that's opening on Thursday. It's a James Cameron-produced film directed by Robert Rodriguez. You might have seen ads for it. It's about a cyborg teenage girl. So the experience is we worked with the production designers from the movie themselves. So you're walking into the movie set recreation, which includes a bar area. So after check-in, there's a limited time in this bar area where we hope to have custom brews that are related to the narrative, the experience. But the key part of that is really just meeting your team. It's a team-based sort of fun activity, and then strategizing about what happens next. So the core part of the experience is a game room where you are put in teams of 6 and then doing immersive events related to the narrative. So it might be recognizing smells from the marketplace of this world, or doing sort of logic or listening tests. Yeah, we're hoping that we can get these temporary licenses to help us with this experience and sort of fully immerse people into the world. We also think that it's good for the neighborhood. We are bringing people in since it's a very unique experience, and we did hire local East Williamsburg people to help with our build and our scenic and helping to create this world that we did. So thank you very much.
Are there any questions?
North 10th. and drinks.
Yes, Eric?
Did you have anything to do with the magicians experience similar to this last year at the Wicked Veil?
We were not, no, we were not.
Jan?
I bring up that obviously whenever films are done, there are a lot of inconvenience to the people that live. Is there going to be, or I mean,
This is not-
cars, movement, trucks?
This is
any
not
of
a film shoot, so our build has been done. It took about a month, and it was mostly just moving in and creating set pieces, but yeah, it is not a film shoot. You're welcome.
Trina?
So the alcohol just would be served in where people gather before they go in?
Yes, only when they gather, when they go in. We have a lot of sensitive electronics, so we don't let people bring their drinks inside, and it's a ticketed experience, so it's only about a 48-person capacity per hour.
Did you have your hand? Chester?
Yeah, so how often will the activity be operating?
So we are live now and not serving alcohol. This week we're open Tuesday through Sunday, so evenings starting at 5 p.m. on the weekdays, and then starting on the weekends 1 o'clock, closing around 10:30. And we're hoping to keep it running for as long as possible, but it's obviously related to the movie, so through March at minimum.
Tom?
I don't know if it's in order or out of order or how much they're gonna present, but I did draft a letter for the board regarding this applicant, which lays out what he was thanking us for having done, so I don't know if you wanna hear that or not.
Maybe somebody that needs stuff to want to hear.
So, cause
Thanks, Tom.
I'm gonna do that horrible thing reading from my phone, which I hate, but anyway. So a letter was drafted. Jacqueline Held is the Deputy Commissioner of Licensing. So there's two things. There's temporary beer and wine permits that certain locations can have only 4 of per year. In the past, we've had certain other elected officials grant up to 30 permits to locations without asking our permission, and we've had to teach them that's not the way you do things. But you can also get seasonal permits. So this group started with the idea of a seasonal permit, but then to do that, they have to do the whole 30-day posting, and then come to our committee meeting, and then come back to the full board, and then by then their event is over.
Right.
So they came to us for the temporary one. So Kansas Experience provided 30-day notice of intent to come to our meeting. Our meeting, so it's going to be the calendar today. They come to our meeting on the 27th, and then we'd have a community board meeting on March whatever, and then their event ends March 17th. So it's like, so I've told the crew that in the future, start a lot earlier. Because they wrote to the board on January 31st, the first day that they wanted to open the place. So they got to learn how it works, all right? So it's a pop-up immersion experience, like they described to you. And when they contacted the board office sent me the thing, and I spoke to Michael, and I spoke to David Molina from the 9-4, who's back there in the corner. I spoke to our battalion chief from the fire department. David went and checked it out, met with them. He did a list of questions. I did a list of questions. The battalion chief went over and inspected it. So those of you who don't know the location, it's Michael Salakis' failed restaurant, MP Place, the giant space.
Yeah, like the rich side and the poor side.
And it failed.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Anyway, so after all of that, I had no problem with it. The permits would only be granted for Thursday to Sunday from January 31st to March 17th. The permit holder would be Kansas Experience, and there's a not-for-profit that's working with them. The Kansas Experience would get 6 permits. The not-for-profit would get 18, so there'd be a total of 24 temporary permits, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for those 4 weeks. And the thing is, they're closing this beer wine operation at 10:30 at night. So it's a very short thing. So they need to start earlier next time, but I don't think we have a real problem with it.
Excuse me, Tom. Rob, we're having one meeting, please.
So they were a little slow on the uptake, but the police department and the fire department came through quickly, inspected it. The board is on top of it right away. They answered my questions, they answered David's questions, so I think there's not gonna be a problem with it. So, I would support sending the letter to the SLA saying give them their temporary permits for the rest of the period.
Thank you, Tom. That's gonna come up under your report, right?
Well, this this letter I sent to the board office, I don't have it actually in my hand, but that's what they're asking for, so I'm recommending that we.
Well, I'm just saying you're gonna bring it up and ask for a vote under your report.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is the Waterfront Alliance, Waterfront Edge Design Guidelines. Shamir?
Hello, how's everyone doing tonight? My name is Samir. I'm with the Waterfront Alliance. Has anybody ever heard of the Waterfront Alliance?
Yes.
Got a few people. That's great. So I do apologize. I did have a presentation, but we had some challenges bringing it up. So you'll just have to listen to my voice. But the Waterfront Alliance is an alliance of over 1,000 organizations that really care about our waterfront. We care about ensuring that our waterfront is resilient to flooding, which I'm sure many of you care about. We really want to ensure that our waterfronts are ecologically healthy, and then also that they're accessible to the community. So can I get actually a quick show of hands? How many people have actually accessed the waterfront in your own neighborhood here? Yeah, and how do you feel about it? Is it good? Yes. Now, how many people here have experienced challenges with flooding? Or know people that have experienced challenges with flooding? I'm sure a lot of New Yorkers do, especially in this community. And so there are actually two tools that we have, that we've developed, that are available for free. And we want to share these with communities to ensure that we are working together with communities to ensure that all of our waterfronts are resilient, are ecologically healthy, and are community-driven and accessible to the community. And so one of the tools, which I've handed out a few of them, but I have a stack of them, so I'll hand out more later. But it's called our Harbor Scorecard, which we did an extensive study, and we kind of ranked each of the neighborhoods that are there in terms of resiliency, in terms of ecological health, and in terms of accessibility to the waterfront. So that's available online as well for free. But I'll hand it out to folks in the back later. Now the second tool, which is the main thing that I want to talk about, is called our Waterfront Edge Design Guidelines. It's called WEDGE for short. Now the Waterfront Edge Design Guidelines, or WEDGE, is a set of technical guidelines, and we brought together about 200 professionals and engineers, ecologists, city directives, community activists, whoever it may be, to develop these guidelines. Now, the guidelines work similar to how a LEED certification works. So are people familiar with how LEED certification is? Or have you heard of LEED before? No? Some have, maybe. But these guidelines, how it works is if a development or a project, whether it be a residential development, an industrial development, or even a park, a city or state park, if they're developing a project along the waterfront, we have a WEDGE certification in which their project can be WEDGE certified if they meet a certain number of criteria that we have outlined. Now the criteria that we are talking about are, again, what I've shared so many times is in resiliency, ecological health, and accessibility to the waterfront. And so there's a whole, our WEDGE guidelines are available for free online. You can look us up, our Waterfront Alliance, or you can look up WEDGE Waterfront Alliance to see this. And there always will be accessible, can always be a strong tool for anybody to use and to learn from. Now, if this project gets WEDGE certified, they meet 150 points, then they will be considered WEDGE certified, and it's an incentive for these developers, and so that they can kind of show off their work. Now, the biggest thing is it's important for you guys as a community, because I've met a few people here, but I feel already safe enough to speak a little bit on behalf of you that I feel like you do care about resiliency to flooding. And I feel like you do care about accessibility to the waterfront. And not just looking at the waterfront, I mean actual access to the waterfront. And I feel like you do care about the ecological health that's there. And so what we are proposing actually is a resolution, and we have a draft one here, but we want to interact with you guys to feel like whatever it is that you would like it to be. But a resolution that says that if any project or development, park or whatever it is, wants to do a project on the waterfront, you want to show them Wedge and say, we want you to look at Wedge as a standard because these are the standards that we care about for our waterfronts. Now it's up to them to decide if they want to apply to be Wedge certified. This is not a regulation or anything like that, but with your support saying we want you to actually look through this and we are encouraging you to apply to be Wedge certified, we feel that this can really actually shift the market so that anybody who's going along the waterfront is ensuring that it meets these standards of resiliency, accessibility, and ecological health. And so we actually have a few Wedge certified projects here in Brooklyn. Brooklyn Bridge Park is one. The Domino Sugar site is one. I've written them. Sunset Park Materials Recovery Facility, that's down South Brooklyn, but that's another one. So we have a few already, but with your help, we can ensure that the waterfront really meets these standards. So, yes?
That does include oil slicks and all that stuff in your ecological definition.
You mean for like cleanups?
Well, the cleanup and boats that, we have big oil underground oil here from spills.
Yes.
That includes all that.
Yeah, actually, it will. It's of course, we are not the ones who will be doing it, but whatever project comes in with Wedge, they would get points for things like that, yeah. I would love to meet with the Parks Committee and we can explore more deeply of how it can be utilized. Yeah.
And then the committee can make recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that would be great.
Nice.
Yes.
I noticed that on the scorecard here that our neighborhood's waterfront is one of the least, not the worst, waterfront in terms of health.
Wow.
We have the most millions of gallons of sewage.
Wow.
Highest percentage of unhealthy
I
fish.
wonder where that is.
Unsafe swimming.
I'm saying, I wonder why that is.
Someday.
Oh, it's just interesting noting.
Doesn't say why.
Someday.
No, it's just on
Yeah,
this.
I'm saying, wondering
Oh, we have
why.
to see all these sewage outflows.
That's scary.
Pipes along
So I guess we don't care as much as you thought.
It's not
No,
that.
you-
It's what's been
in the
brought into
past,
it.
people didn't care, but I think now people
We care.
It's not us today. It was
Yeah.
before.
We care.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody would like a handout, please let me know.
Next item on the agenda is the comments on the budget. Phil?
We're trying to get us a handout.
Shamir? The board members. The next item on the agenda is the comments on the preliminary budget. Are there any comments on the budget? Are there any comments on the budget? Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public session. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna call the roll. We're gonna start the board meeting. We have a quorum, but nobody can leave. Otherwise, we lose the quorum. And we have items that has to be voted on. If anybody leaves, we lose our quorum. We will be here and be back in the next 2 weeks, so we'll have 2 meetings next month. Can I have the roll call, please?
Gina Argento, Bogdan Bakarowski, Lisa Bamonte, Dr. Baraselli, Gina Barros, Eric Brusitis, Tom Burrows, Phil Caponegro, Iris Cabrera, Frank Carbone, Stephen Chesler, Michael Chiricella, Teresa Cinciata, Joshua Cohn, Arthur Dibinowski, T. Willis Elkins, Julia Manda Foster, Samuel Fransos, Chairperson Fuller, Emily Gallagher, Vincent Gangone, Solomon Green, Joel Gross, Sonia Iglesia, Moisha Indig, Bozina Kaminsky, Avram Katz, Ryan Coonan, Yoel Landau, Marie Lianza, Yoel Lowe, Trina McKeever. Quiet, please. Toby Moskowitz, Martin Needleman, Simon Newstein, Rabbi Niederman, Karen Nieves, Mario Domerick, Janice Peterson, Dana Racklin, Michael Gary Schlesinger, Isaac Sofer, Robert Solano, James Stewart, Del Teague, Tommy Torres, Maria Vieta, Stephen Weidberg, Simon Weiser, Tessa Wilson. "26 members present, which is a quorum."
Thank you. We have a quorum. Let's have our moment of silence, please. Thank you. Can I have approval of the agenda? Phil, Sonia, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstention? Motion carried. Can I have approval of the minutes? Trina, Tommy, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. One abstention? I'm sorry, Maria. One abstention, Maria. Okay, we're gonna do the committee reports, and I know people have to leave, so I'm gonna try to do the reports that have to have votes. Transportation? You don't need a vote.
You need a vote?
No, it's a last minute. Okay, yeah. One thing, it's real quick. Well, it's a, I could give you the cliff notes on the report. It's, okay, so I'll do the vote first, if that's all right. So back in the May meeting, we took up a pedestrian plaza at North Fifth and Metropolitan, which the board had voted down back in 2010. But since then, Monsignor Jamie had sent us a letter saying that the church was now in favor of it, and he had some events that he wanted to use the plaza for. At the May meeting of last year, we took it up and we voted to approve it unanimously and sent a letter already. Last week, Jerry, DOT had a meeting. Last week, DOT had a meeting. There was no community opposition registered at that meeting. So I'm asking now for a new vote for a new letter of support for the pedestrian plaza at North Fifth and Metropolitan Avenue.
Phil,
I'd like to second, make a motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, and then just, I'll run through the report quickly. So there was a rather angry letter that came from Safety Dynamics regarding use of film streets in front of their facility on Collier. They have film trucks. Now, they're right by Stage 9 at Broadway Stages. Broadway Stages was not the target of this letter. There were other production companies that were. And the gist of it is that almost every week, multiple times a week, there are film trucks in front of their facility. There was a separate issue that DOT also recently put up no standing signs, and that was necessary for daylighting. However, they never had notice, and then all of a sudden their employees got tickets, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an ongoing issue with film streets, as many of you will remember, and some of you have to deal with, especially if you're on Milton Street, Oak, and like that area. They sent a representative to discuss the issues, mostly about film trucks saving, or production parking PAs saving spots for crew, which is not allowed and happens all the time. And the police department officers that are specific to the film industry often just look the other way, and this is something we've all seen, and as somebody who worked in film knows that it happens all the time. So basically what they're asking for is a hotspot to protect them, not from never having film trucks in front of their facility, but to reduce it from every week. Now imagine, every week you have film trucks blocking your business, your residents, every week. Yes, they're in the industrial zone. Yes, they're close to Broadway stages. There was significant pushback from Broadway stages. Tony Argento came. People from the production of Billions and Blue Bloods came, which are noted in the letter. Again, they were very clear that Broadway stages was not the target, and they have been working with them to get parking for some of their clients, which now their clients have to walk. They do training and things like that, so their clients have to walk very far to get there in a lot of cases because they're coming from out of town. So we are going to look at getting a hotspot. We're working with Councilman Levin's office, and Evergreen is involved, and there will be updates. This is, again, part of the ongoing film abuses aspect of the Transportation Committee. So we'll probably be taking this up again at the next meeting. Second was Grant Street redesign. As many of you who use Grand Street know, it is now a mess, and it is because that they did not finish the painting in time before the painting season ended, and it wasn't really a fully realized plan, as we know. And now it's even a more confused issue because of the governor's announcement that he is not shutting down the L train in April. However, there is unfinished painting and marking and signs and tickets being given out for no reason or for bad reasons. There's dangers to cyclists, pedestrians, motorists who are used to going there and parking, now cannot park. There are no loading zones for the businesses. A number of the business owners from Grant Street came out to voice their frustration. A lot of people from Transportation Alternatives and other just cyclists also came out to mention that the street is not functioning properly. One guy came in a neck brace because he hit a exposed grate in the bike lane in the dark and did an end over and was seriously injured enough to wear a brace, and it wasn't an act. So, there was another gentleman who came that had also been hit on Grand Street by a car on his bicycle. The protected lanes are a good thing where they work, but where they don't work, it can often lead to cars can't see when they're making turns. There were some requests for bicycle lights to be installed as part of the full plan. This is going to be a recurring item on the Transportation Committee agenda until it's resolved. There is a DOT and MTA are briefing elected officials tomorrow morning, I believe, Alex? Yes. And I should say that Alex was kind enough to come just to be there to bring.
Informed us today, so.
Right.
One day in advance.
Right, but I want to mention that you did. I asked you to come to that meeting just to hear the opposition, and you did, and bring that back to Antonio, who was part of this issue. So thank you for that. Anyway, so the elected officials are going to be briefed on what's going on with the L train tomorrow morning. The L train coalition is planned to meet in the near future, and this will all be dovetailed into what's going on Grant Street. And we hope to have a couple strategy sessions. Like I said, it will be on the February 19th meeting agenda. If you're interested in Grant Street and fixing it, please come. I want to hear all voices on it. The report came out late. I'm sorry for that, but it is there are detailed comments and concerns within that letter. And I know the BID has also drafted a letter asking for a full public process, hearings from DOT, et cetera, to really make sure that when they do put in the bike lanes, they are done with the full community support, or at least voice heard and put into the planning. Again, no vote on that. And lastly, Mr. Schlesinger has made it his cause to open up the Clymer Street entrance to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We got a rather nasty response from the district manager of CB2, who I will be reaching out to and with a peace offering because the Navy Yard rests in his district. But it's something that will reduce, not based on any science, just anecdotal, will reduce traffic potentially on Kent, on Flushing. It'll make access for everyone a little bit easier. So we're going to talk about it, and we'll put people together to look into it and see if it actually makes sense to do. Right now, Steiner Studios has full access to it, and got DOT to just make it happen, as you will remember when they came to brief us on it. So if Steiner Studios can get whatever they want, why can't we get what we want, right? So anyway, but it is a CB2 proper issue. However, the access happens from our side, so we'll see what happens with that, and that'll be an ongoing agenda item for the transportation. So if you're interested in that, and if you like to bicycle through the Navy Yard, come and talk to us.
Tom?
Eric.
Sir.
One question we brought up at one of our past board meetings was getting somebody to tell us what exactly they were doing with the L-train, and we had to wait till the board meeting for them to know what they were doing before they would come make a presentation to the community board. So
Right, so.
are they at a place that they can
No.
come and make a presentation?
No,
Because now the L-trains close every weekend until March 19th.
Yes.
Which is screwy.
Well, that was planned. That was already planned, the
And that's the way
weekend
it's gonna
shutdowns.
be, and we don't know, that's the way it's gonna be for the next year and a half, and we haven't been
Yes.
told this yet.
As of right now, that's kind of what is gonna happen, but the February weekend closures, that was already scheduled. However, yes, I had spoken to Andy Inglesby about it, and then he had reached out to the board, and we wanted to hear it this month, I think, but they weren't ready. That was their response to the chair, and again, they're only briefing the elected officials tomorrow, and they were supposed to do it last Friday. And I was hoping to have more information from DOT for this meeting to add to my report, but it's not forthcoming because they haven't had that meeting. The electeds don't know, so the public doesn't know. So.
Our next meeting is March, so will they be ready by then we put them on our agenda to make a presentation in March?
If they're presenting tomorrow, they could be, but they're, as of right now,
As soon as
there's.
they're ready, Tom,
Yeah.
and they notify us, we'll put them on the agenda.
And the other thing is, on your movie stuff,
Yeah.
I would ask how long is DOT giving out temporary parking space permits for movie stages that refuse to put in permanent equipment and put temporary equipment on the street? And I mentioned Diamond and Messer Hall.
We could take that up at a future, at a future meeting. Madam Chair?
Yes. Oh, Jan?
Given what you just said about Grand Street, because I also drove down Grand Street and almost was in an accident because it is that dangerous, is that can't they do something in the meantime of flashing lights, something danger, because it really, you say it in a nice calm voice, but then you're describing all these things that are happening to people. To me, that means that they have to do something very visible to alert and warn people, because I had no idea, and I ride up and down Grand Street all the time, and I went flying on the wrong side. I was on the one side, somebody else was on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, this, like, I'm not bringing this up as like something that has just happened. I want to really give the credit to the Grand Street bid, who has really taken this on their shoulders and Aaron in particular, to get answers to these questions, because it's not just what the bid covers, it's the area from Bushwick Avenue, from the bridge, really, all the way, because it continues straight down, and there's issues with the factories there that are up in arms about it. Antonio's office has been on top of this too, as well as Evergreen. So there are people that have been doing a lot of heavy lifting. There are people that have been doing a lot of heavy lifting on this already.
But they could have something visible.
But
Yeah.
we've been asking for answers on volume studies, on turn radiuses, we've been asking the DOT for lots of information on Grant Street for months, almost a year now, or more. Hopefully there will be some elucidation tomorrow, and then we can have members of DOT in to answer substantive questions here at the board.
Flashing lights are different from what you're saying.
Flashing lights could be part of it.
Warning, like trains.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a temporary thing and it can happen, yeah, maybe, but there's so much we don't know. Tommy?
Andy Inglesby reached out to our schools, and they're doing their public session coming up in March 19th.
March 18th at the school?
19th.
March 19th at the school?
At the Grand Street campus.
At the Grand Street campus? Okay,
Well, by next meeting, we should have a flyer.
all right. Okay, that is all, thank you. February 19th, Tuesday is the next meeting.
Okay, this comes under transportation. Thank you, Eric. I want to send a letter to Andy Byford, the president of MTA. It's elevator access for the G line at Broadway and Union Avenue. The Community Board 1, I respectfully request that the below-ground subway station located at Broadway and Union Avenue, G line, be upgraded to include an elevator service. Having a customer elevator at this station will make it accessible for those with limited mobility. We were pleased to learn that NYC Transit was focusing on accessible issues with this new plan, Fast Forward. The plan to modernize NYC Transit, part of this plan this initiative is to add to the span of 5 years, even enough new elevators to ensure that all subway riders would not be more than 2 stops away from an accessible station. This plan proposes the addition of 180 elevators over the course of 10 years. We wholeheartedly applaud this solid effort to help persons with disabilities overcome transit barriers. Given the lack of accessibility found at this G station, we seek that it receive the MTA's immediate attention to construct an elevator here, and ask that this construction project be fully funded and quickly commenced. Working for a better Williamsburg Greenpoint. Dallas full of CC to all the electors. I'd like to send this to the Andy Byford. Simon, pardon me? Simon, Maria, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you. Land use?
Toby Moskowitz.
We want to know, yeah, we want to, Toby.
Land use. I don't know how we gonna do this.
So, okay, I just have one item, as I'm sure you've all seen. I think it's a quick one. This is an application for building at 215 North 10th Street, and it's a mixed-use building, an application for a special permit to reduce the parking requirement just for the office spaces. So, as of now, the office spaces would be required to have 102 spots. The permit would allow them to go down to 51 spots. The developer is willing to give 51 plus 7 extra voluntarily, and then there would also be 16 for residential, which are the required amount, and the required 3 spots for the retail. So there would be 77 spots. I don't know if there's any question about how many residential. I will mention that there are no affordable units in the 31 residential units, but they did, or they are going to purchase inclusionary housing certificates so that there will be affordable units built within this community board. I think that we all know that city planning has already informed us that they feel that the requirements that are in place now for office parking are outdated. They are in the process of reducing the requirements, and so given that, the committee voted unanimously to approve the application.
Can I have a second? Martin, you have a question?
Yes. Yeah, they made a they did make a presentation here, and then they came to the committee. Yes, yes.
Motion. Sonia, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. You abstained, Martin?
Okay, so, and then the other thing is that we set up our schedule. We'll be meeting the first Monday of every month, unless, of course, that Monday happens to be a holiday. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dal. SLA and public safety.
All right, SLA committee, where's the report? You all got the report emailed to you. All right, so there was one sidewalk cafe, which was a renewal, so it's Double Deep doing business as Black Flamingo on 168 Brinquin Place, so we recommended approval of the renewal. Motion, somebody?
Bogdan, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried. Marty, you were against?
All right, now we always get into a big battle here, so of the new liquor licenses, 1, 2, 3 are postponed. So there's really nothing that you need to do on those, but so you know why they're postponed. The McCarran Hotel, we've had wonderful problems with the rooftop, and they had a new management team which fixed up the wonderful problems on the rooftop. They went from like 600 complaints a summer down to 7. But then they got rid of that management team. So we asked them to come back and tell us who their management team is going to be and whether they've met with the neighboring condo buildings and what kind of plans they have, because you may have, any of you who are near the McCarran Hotel know of the noisy parties and glass bottle throwing and other fun and games that have happened there in the past, which they had cleaned up last summer, but we want to make sure that continues. So they postponed so they can come back and give us a better story. Ora Cucina was postponed because we were trying to figure out their hours and what their outdoor space hours, and there's a bunch of different things we were trying to work out with them. And Aussie Foods got postponed because they showed up with absolutely no paperwork. So that's a little hard to approve anything when they don't show up with any paperwork. So those 3 are postponed. So you really don't have to do anything on those except to approve the postponement. So is it okay with all of you that those 3 are postponed?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have a bunch that we recommended denial on. And mostly, let's see, 664 Manhattan Avenue didn't show up. So you don't show up, you get denied.
Yeah.
Hungry Burrito didn't show up, so we recommended denial. Wanchi's Burgers, which has been on 1,000,000 times, we can't figure out what's going on with them. They didn't show up, so we recommended denial. So those denials, is anybody opposed to those denials?
No.
All right. So we only have the renewals in that collection, so we can do them all at once. We have new ones like this. Casa Ora at 148 Messerol, we recommend approval of them. These are new. These are new. Sorry, I slipped. And Secret Loft at 198 Randolph, we recommended approval. And Urban Outfitters, because you have to have a drink to buy their clothing, we recommend it. They've always had a licensed establishment in the store, but now it's going to be a separate licensed establishment in the store operated by a separate operator, not the store. So it's not really a change, it's just a different operator. So I'm asking that somebody make a motion to approve our news, postponements, denials, and renewals.
Rob? Marty?
No. He wants each one of them. The general one.
All right, the postponements are 1, 3, 4, 8. No, we have to say it's okay for them to postpone, I guess.
So what exactly are we requesting then?
So a motion for those 4 postponements.
Rob?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
And then we have 2, 6, 7 to deny.
Motion.
Cohen? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
And then we have 1, 2, 3 approvals. No, these are news. These are news. News.
Bogdan?
3 new ones.
Bogdan, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Marty? Abstention? Motion carried.
Okay. Renewals, there are 13 of them, and we recommend approval of all those renewals. We had no problems. The list gets sent to the precincts. They get back to me, let me know if there's any problems with any of them. I have no complaints of any of them, so we're recommending.
Motion to approve.
Sonia, all in favor? Aye. Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, then previously postponed, 63 Montrose Avenue, doing business as a Rosemount, didn't show up, so we recommend denial for them. Indigo Williamsburg, which is the gigantic hotel condominium behind Kellogg's Diner, still hasn't figured out what they're doing, so they didn't appear, they weren't ready. Did they ask for a postponement, or they just pulled it? I think they just didn't show, so they'll have to restart their lives. Ploy Perm doing Nora Thai, we recommended approval of them. That's a Thai restaurant. They were just changing who the owners were. And Rob Pitum, which is a new application for a hair salon with a wine bar, they didn't show up. So we're recommending denial on 3 and approval of the corporate change on 1.
Rob, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Okay, so on today's list of public items, we have the people from, who presented earlier, Kansas Experience, New York City LLC, Passport Iron City. They originally applied for a seasonal permit. They really don't have time to get their seasonal permit. So, as I read parts of a letter that I sent to Jerry and Dialis for us to send to the SLA, that we're not opposed to them getting issuance of temporary beer and wine. That's all they're getting is beer and wine for 470 Driggs, the period Thursdays and 2 Sundays, January 31st through March 17th. The permit holders will be Kansas Experience New York City and Dub Lab. In no event shall Kansas Experience get more than 6 and Dub Lab get more than 18. So that's a total of 24. They've already lost 2 weekends, so it's whatever weekends are left. And the permits would only be up till 10:30 at night. So I did draft a letter. It was sent to the office. It's long and complicated, but I would ask that we approve sending that letter to the SLA.
Rob, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Cool. All right, Public Safety and Social Services Committee. I sent out a written report. It was the night of that really weird snow squall. Like we had a really intense snow for an hour and everybody panicked and it's like, are we canceling meetings? Are we all gonna hide under a rock? Are we gonna run? And then it just ended. So we had very sparse attendance. The report is as written. Our next meeting is March 27th at 6:30, and we hope to have a more successful meeting by inviting the people we wish to have come farther in advance, so we get some kind of, we're trying to deal with the new homeless services people and some of the homeless issues in the neighborhood. So any social service issues, get it to the office, they'll send it to me, okay?
Thank you, Tom. Education, Donna.
Hi, we'll be really quick. So we had our first meeting of the year, and we want to have many more people there to discuss things like diversity and inclusion in the schools within Community Board 1. Also, what came up was how do we hold schools accountable to make sure that they're reaching their deliverables with the money that they're allotted from the city and different organizations. So talking about how to engage school leadership more and holding them accountable and what that looks like. So the goal is to get many more parents involved and maybe the younger people who are living in this community that will eventually be having young children or who are interested in what is being taught to our children in these schools. We want to make sure that Community Board 1 has schools that are competitive with the rest of the the city and the country for that matter, and that our young people are prepared and ready for the workforce. So we're also working with local companies to build out experiential learning. So for example, something that's happening with the Williamsburg Hotel is teaching architecture students around all the things having to do with architecture and design, be it from zoning all the way to actual drafting of plans. So we're really encouraging everybody to join for our next meeting, which is March 28th at 6:30, where again we'll be discussing inclusion and diversity, equity in schools, preparing our young people for the workforce, and I think that that's everything. So thank you.
Women's issues, Jan? Pardon me? I said thank you.
Oh, sorry.
We want another muffin. I think that was women's issues. You just got fed that wonderful cookies and muffins. We had our meeting this last week, and I'm trying to see where I can put here. We have a letter on women's swim from Lento, Levin, and Reynoso, stating that they're writing to the chairperson. I don't know if you want to read your own letter, Alice. I can read it.
You
right?
can read it, I had it, I don't know where it is.
I gave it to you.
I know, I said I had it.
Yeah, we write to you today in support of restoring the women's swim program to its original hours, once again. Restoring those hours in the interest of health, safety, and well-being, particularly those who require or prefer a gender-specific therapeutic swim program. Women have not had equitable access to aqua therapy in New York City public facilities, such as the Metropolitan Pool. It's essential that women have sufficient, dedicated, gender-specific time for therapeutic swim for rehabilitation and improved health. In addition to safety and comfort benefits, lower-income women, some of who have cultural or religious affiliations, deserve to be able to take care of their health with public facilities. The benefits of aquatherapy are clear. Pool usage improves flexibility, speeds up recovery time, and reduces stress and anxiety. As elected officials, we are aware that many residents do not have adequate access to medical or pharmacological programs because of a lack of health insurance or other economic barriers. Public pools provide an important health option for New Yorkers of all income brackets, yet the swim program's current restrictions are denying some women access to services, contradicting sound public health policies. So once again, we're coming around. This is one. There's going to be, the group will meet. We did not have a quorum, so we're not bringing tonight to request the community board to send another letter of support. We'll do it at the next meeting. The women are still swimming and counting. All the people are going. The pool is still not being used adequately, and the issue goes on, and there will be some legal and other issues that people are going forth. We also, at our meeting, we have, I think, you know that violence against women is safety, which we've talked about with the SLA, but I think we need to talk, Tom, about that meeting, because one of the people, women came in that are part of the sex harassment and violence, both the assemblyman now, you all know that the assemblyman now has considerable influence now in Albany, so things are turned around in terms of what the assemblyman Lento, right? And I think we have another assemblywoman, right? So we are in a good place, and people bills are coming up on sex harassment and violence. There will be in Albany a whole series of public hearings because women have asked that have been victims. I hate to use the word victims. People that have been having to take on, what is the word now? We don't say victims. Survivors, I know, and I'm in the founding of all this stuff. The survivors are saying that they want to be part of the, when legislation is designed, they want to have something to say about it. So Emily from Joseph Lentil's office, I have not talked to the new assemblywoman yet, but we're looking at coordinating and setting up for those people that work on violence and sex harassment and other issues. You should come. We had men this time that came to our meeting. 3 men have formed a group here in Williamsburg, and they are looking for men that want to learn how to stand up and support women. So any of you that are interested, you can contact, it came from Joseph Lentil's office, Emily, or Emily, our Emily Gallagher, that's who's really from, and join, because I think they have a very good team. And a lot of times we stand up for our own issues, but we don't know how to support other people on their issues, whether it's race or class or gender. So I think any of you guys, that would be good, and they are joining the Women's Issue Committee. And what we didn't have time to do, and I think we feel badly about it, is that we really didn't look at the budget. And that seems to be pretty important. As we got to the end of our meeting, we didn't have time to review, and I assume that's too late now. We can't give comments, or we can? I guess that's one question we had.
Still good comments.
Okay.
We're having a meeting on the 4th. What day
4th.
is it?
Isn't it the 4th? The 4th.
And I think just the good news we brought up last time, but we asked the community board, and I don't know if it happened, was to send a letter to the borough president of Brooklyn to commend him for honoring Shirley Chisholm, who was our congresswoman out here, by putting up a statue in Park Slope. And we are also going forward with looking for commemoration of Irene Klementovich in Greenpoint, and we're looking at doing a variety of things, which I don't need to say more, in March, which is Women's History Month. So we would like to have at the next March meeting, it would be nice, and we could talk with our chairperson about maybe bringing somebody in to commemorate. This is Women's History Month. And there's obviously a lot of exciting things going on. I mean, our Congresswoman Carol Maloney is moving on building a museum for women in Washington. Nydia Velasquez is standing up on public housing. I'm just saying we have some really, we have a new woman, as you said, assemblywoman. So it might be nice just to have a short.
Senator.
What?
Senator.
Senator, thank you. Thank you. That's it. The next meeting will be March 5th.
Yes.
Just, Jan, for your information on, if anybody saw inside City Hall last night, Errol Lewis had 2 former staffers there's going to be a hearing in Albany on sexual harassment policies in the state. I don't have the date for it, but is it tomorrow? Oh, yeah. Okay, tomorrow. So anybody wants it, I'm sure Errol Lewis will be covering it. As well.
And I know if Emily was here, I would say it, but somebody that brought their issue on being raped or I don't know if it was sexual harassment or sexual assault to the 94th Police Precinct, they were going to move on it and didn't. So we're checking all that out, but I don't have anything to say because the woman didn't show up at our meeting, and I don't want to put anything out if we don't have the facts. But there was some concern that the police department, and that goes with the SLA, we don't see them enough, is that are they following the protocols? And there's some on budget, they're saying that they don't have enough money, the budget issue coming up about having the proper staff to be able to help around sex harassment and sexual assault. So it's just something to look at. They used to, and now they don't. And people are saying that the protocols are not being followed. So that's it.
Thank you, Jane.
That was very graceful.
Tom, yes.
Since the word SLA was said over and over again. Both the 9-0 and the 9-4 precincts have monthly precinct council meetings. The 9-4's precinct council meeting is the first Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock at St. John's on Milton Street. The 9/0 is the second Wednesday of the month at the community room at 30 Montrose Street. There's a social worker, Avenue, whatever it is. At least they didn't change that neighborhood and call it Montrose. That was a move that our newcomers wanted to call that neighborhood Montrose. Anyway, there's a social worker assigned from, I believe, Safe Horizons or whatever it's called, at each precinct who's supposed to be available to work with any survivors of sexual violence or domestic violence. And this issue comes up at every precinct council meeting because the representatives of the North Brooklyn group and Dana and all of us bring it up with the precinct all the time. So we do bring it up with the precinct and the precinct's working on it. But the police department doesn't take complaints on Facebook. They take them through 911 and 311. They don't monitor Facebook for crime complaints. It's 311 or 911. The fact that these long dissertations and discussions are going on the North Brooklyn page doesn't tell the police department that anything is going on. You have to use 911 and 311.
Parks. As written. Nothing, ma'am. Okay, public session, we have no speakers, right?
There is one person.
Okay, we'll call them.
Because birthdays happen every year, weddings don't happen every year. Birthdays happen every year. But what if it was your child getting married? So now you have a child getting married, a child getting birthday. Which is the more important one? Weddings are more important than birthdays. And her birthday every year too. That's not a birthday. Okay. But luckily, you don't have to go with it. You can leave. It's okay.
Madam Chair.
The young lady, the woman Cindy who wanted to talk about the Con Edison site.
It's okay. It's part of my life. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Canton. Thank you all for putting me in this meeting. So I represent the Friends of the Northside Waterfront, or the Northside Waterfront community. And I wanted to speak to you all about a site that's at North 3rd and River Street, the Con Ed sites, which I think you're all probably aware of, that they were up for sale and actually have been sold, I believe, at an inflated price based on the sellers believing that it could be converted to a residential, probably 40-story towers. So previously I had thought it was kind of a ridiculous idea that this community could possibly need more density, obviously with the L train shutdown as a part of it, and the fact that the L train is as crowded as it is. I've also spent a good amount of time reading through the 2005 rezoning, which I imagine all of you are far more aware of than I am. But to that end, I read through the 197A plans, and it was kind of amazing to see what the requests were for the waterfront, and to notice that sites that the community asked to be 15 stories became 40 stories. To that end, you can obviously see the amount of development that has happened since 2005. So the idea that yet another site should be rezoned when there are, as per the New York Times, 1,900 sites in the pipeline just for this year, plus thousands more that are already coming. The site, as of right, can be a commercial, so it could be commercial and offices, just like the site that's across the street that's under development now, which I believe is 5 stories. So I asked the community, and I paused to note that as I understand it, Steve Levin, who the decision is in his hands, has said that he would side with the community on this point. So that would be why I'm standing here tonight, talking to the community. So I ask you all when it is that this comes to our attention, which I believe is probably pretty soon, to stand by this, that ultimately we don't need more density. And as a neighbor to that site with the traffic, the garbage, the change of our community, and that while a lot of people believe that a deal can be had here, as a member of the Friends of Bushwick Inlet Park, I was told for a long time that the only way we could get a park was if a condo was in the middle of it. And we worked really hard so that could not happen, and I believe that a site should be what it was supposed to be as per the rezoning, and I ask the community to stand by that.
You guys,
Well, I'm sure that Dell's ears perk up at this.
Pardon me?
But I'm getting totally confused. We had OSA and GWAP, but I think they came together to become North Brooklyn Friends. And then we had something else which became the North Brooklyn Parks Coalition. Then I've now heard of the Friends of Northside Waterfront and the Friends of Bushwick Inlet Park.
North Brooklyn Angels.
If we create any more groups, the real estate people are gonna have no time marching over us because we have 1,000 different groups. Is there like one group that's coordinating all this stuff? It's like crazy now. I mean, anybody know what's going on with all these groups? Like, are they all falling apart? Are they all?
Well, I mean, two of them combined, yeah.
Right, but now we have a new Friends.
Who was the two that combined?
Nag and Shop.
And they're, what they called?
North Brooklyn Neighbors.
No, you're not from North Brooklyn Neighbors though, right?
I'm not. I've been speaking with them about this. I was just speaking on behalf of the community that I'm a part of, so Northside Piers, The Edge. We actually got together initially to support the Friends of Bushwick Inlet Park, but just to say that I was speaking on behalf of that particular group, not to say that we are separate. We've been in touch, and I believe that we're a stronger voice if we're working together. So agree with you entirely.
The Friends groups work with the Parks Department on the parks in their areas. So there's like a Goldrick Park one, Bushwick Inlet Park,
Right.
Northside Piers area. And then there's the North Brooklyn Parks Association, which was OSA.
Got it.
That changed its name.
Got it. Thank you.
You got put application time?
Well, I'm just hoping that they're all like meeting together because we went through this zoning 5 or 6 years ago and all this stuff is in somebody's file cabinet somewhere.
So we're all generally in communication with each other. Frankly, a lot of board members overlap.
Sir, in the back, you out of order.
Sorry.
Tom, you finished, you got to do.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, I'm looking at my faces over here and they seem to be
I know.
Tom, put them on and tell them to clarify for you and get back to you. Okay?
Thanks. No, they got it handled over there.
Okay, Dell.
So I just want to support what Tom is saying here, and I think it's, at the risk of being very redundant, I'll just say it again. I've said it for years. If the city does not find and does not have to face a unified community, they assume we don't really care, and they'll just do anything they want to do at that particular moment. So, this is, I think, a very, very important issue. This is one of the few spaces left. It's on the waterfront, one of the few, spaces that will be able to have a unified voice in, and I think that there is a lot of support for the idea that we've had enough density, we have enough of that, we have enough 40-story towers, but we also need to realize that we need to come out and speak. This will at some point, I guess, come before the Land Use Committee. I haven't heard of it yet. And please remember that no matter what we're discussing at the Land Use Committee, everybody is always invited. We'll have an open committee. On this particular issue, I hope that a lot of people will show up. Really, guys, we have to make sure the city knows that we care. And we also, if Steve Levin is going to back us, then we want him to know that we have his back too. So that's just what I want to say.
Thank you. Chairperson's report, I only got one thing, and that is, I'm noticing that with our committees, we're not getting quorums again. So I would like for everybody to do diligence and participate in their committee meetings. After all, you're asked to be put on these committees. So I would suggest that we start back coming to our committee meetings. And if we haven't had chairs, if we haven't had meetings, I suggest that we start having meetings. Thank you. District manager's report as written. Announced elected officials. Josh Pierre from the controller's office. Josh, I know I saw him a while ago.
Here he is.
Oh, this is a little low, but that's fine. Good evening, all. My name is Josh Pierre. I'm here on behalf of your New York City Comptroller, Scott M. Stringer. When I came here earlier, I did share these two flyers with you. They have to do with the Comptroller's new housing plan. So I'm sure some of you already know we have a housing crisis in the city, and this housing crisis disproportionately affects people making under $47,000 a year, and that's about 500,000 New Yorkers. So every time some type of housing project is put out there, you do find the common complaint that we get is this: it's called affordable housing, but who's it affordable to? And we believe that this is, Comptroller Scott Stringer believes that this is due to some of the ways that the affordable housing plan the city currently has is structured. So just to give you some numbers, Comptroller Scott Stringer's report found that 515,000 New Yorkers are in extreme housing stress, scrapping by on less than $40,000 per year, paying over half of their income towards rent, and living in crowded apartments or even in shelters for over a year. But just 11% of the city's current housing plan is considered affordable units for those types of New Yorkers. So it turns out that the city is producing just as much housing for these extremely low-income individuals as people who are making $150,000 a year. So what would we like to do about them? You'll get more details in our report, but the comptroller has made 3 suggestions, and it's basically the crux of this plan. 1, redirect the city's current housing plan to the remaining units in the city's housing plan towards the lowest income New Yorkers. 2, triple the number of housing units set-asides for homeless individuals. And just think about what homelessness means now in the city. It's not just what we used to think homelessness was. It's not just somebody on a park bench. These are working individuals who sometimes just don't have a place to live, and the shelter over time becomes their permanent home. And 3, the comptroller would like to suggest a tax cut while closing the loopholes. And essentially what this does is, the way we would do this is we would eliminate the mortgage recording tax, which double taxes those who borrow money to own homes. And we would reform the real property tax system and have a more progressive system where, based on the property values, you would pay a little bit more, and if it's under $1 million, you would pay a little bit less in taxes for the transfer tax. So these are some of the policies that we continue to work towards to make this a more affordable city for all. Lastly, if you would like to get more information about the housing plan, the full report is on our website, which is comptroller.nyc.gov. And if you'd like, you can follow the comptroller on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh. Eugene Resnick from the borough's president's office.
Hello, everybody. So just a few announcements to remind you. February 15th is still the deadline for community board applications. If you need to renew, let me know, and I will send you an application. It's due this Friday. The borough president announced his support for the Timber Bridge proposal, which you saw proposals for a few months ago by the architects. The bridge would connect Greenpoint and Long Island City through a land bridge. So this is something that we're very excited about, so we will see what the plans are for that going through. Also, we are having a meeting next week to discuss the hate crime issue that we saw last month with the swastikas being posted around Greenpoint, on Eagle and McGinnis and DuPont streets. So I'm meeting with Lentil's office and the council member for the area as well to discuss what we can do to combat anti-Semitism in the neighborhood. And lastly, you probably heard in the news about the L train smells that have been going on. So I spoke to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation just yesterday. The latest is that they're still doing an ongoing investigation. They don't know the source of the smell as of yet, but it could be potentially multiple sites that are old fueling stations. And they're looking into it, but they are diffusing the odor at the moment, and it shouldn't be a concern to folks. But they're looking into it, and it's an ongoing investigation. So that's it.
Thank you, Eugene. Alexis from Councilman Reynoso's office.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, good night. So very quick about the smell. I just wanted to echo the Borough President's office. The only issue is that they only installed 3 ventilations on Graham, Lorimer, and Bedford, and they still don't know about the source of the smell, which is a huge issue. This is happening over a week, and they really don't know much about it. So going back to the announcements, we will be celebrating Black Leadership on February the 2nd. That will be at Woodhull Hospital from 5 to 7 p.m. The 22nd. Thank you. So February the 22nd is a Friday, 5 to 7, Woodhull Hospital. We'll be celebrating African-American leaders in their community. So it will be 5 to 7 at Woodhull. Also, I would like to acknowledge St. Nick's Alliance, who they will have the Lunar New Year. It's the Year of the Pig. They will be celebrating tomorrow at Jennings Hall, 260 Powers. So, and also I just wanted to complain about what Eric said about the meeting from the MTA and DOT will be tomorrow. I just found out today. This is the third time that the MTA has postponed that meeting. And to add that, no council member will be there because tomorrow is stated. So that's the elected officials meeting, and the council member will be at stated at City Hall. So, and the last thing that I would like to mention is about participatory budgeting. The date for the vote will be March the 30th till April the 4th. Most of the participants are from Williamsburg. Most of them are for the technology upgrades. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Eric Radzic from Councilman Lenthal, Senator Lenthal's office would like to be acknowledged. Boris Santos from Senator Julie Salazar's office would like to speak.
Working hard in Albany.
Good evening, CB1. How you doing? So several things. First, we have a temporary office at 1068 Broadway, Brooklyn, New York, 11221. It is temporary because we are paying out of pocket for it because Albany is negotiating a permanent office. So bear with us. And it's not as warm as in here. Number 2, we are approaching budget season. We have to vote for budget prior to April 1st. That means we're going to be fighting, and we've already started fighting, for funds that are especially owed to our schools through the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. Williamsburg alone is owed almost $20 million in foundation aid. Progress, Mr. Torres is not here, $1.7 million. Junior high school, 50. My alma mater, $1.7 million as well. So it's a really, really big issue. Our district itself accounts for 15% of the $4.5 billion, or just over $4.5 billion that is owed to our district in North Brooklyn. So school budgets, budget, very big. I want to add to Josué Pierre, we need more than just reforming the mortgage transfer tax and also the real property tax. We need a multi-millionaire tax. We need a tax stock transfers as well, or sales of stocks as well, and more. Close the carry interest loophole, but we'll get into that. I'm gonna have my fights. We're gonna have our fights in Senator Salazar's office. Just quickly, over the first 18 days in our term, we passed our first bill, the Comprehensive Contraceptive Coverage Act, which allows for insurers to cover contraceptives without cost sharing for the patient. So that's pretty good. The joint hearing that we're talking about for sexual harassment, a joint hearing that hasn't been done, or a hearing on sexual harassment that hasn't been done since 16 years at the state capitol. Julia Salazar will be leading that with her colleagues Alessandra Biaggi and James Skoufis. And lastly, I really times 10,000 want to talk rent laws. So please, I put a request in for CB1 to talk rent laws, to talk the vacancy decontrol, eviction bonus, what's called vacancy bonus, talk preferential rents, MCIs, and talk our mighty bill, the good cause eviction bill. So please honor a request as soon as you can. I've been requesting a meeting since November. And lastly, I want to honor the presence of Alvin Pena, who will be leading the charge in Williamsburg and Greenpoint for us, all right? Have a good night, y'all. Love.
Thank you, Boris. Danielle.
How's everybody doing? I only slept twice today, so I'm having a great day for me. So I guess last time I saw you, we talked about some of the election reforms that we passed in Albany on day one. We did a bunch more things during January, including gun violence prevention laws. One of Senator Kavanaugh's big trademark items was the Extreme Risk Protection Order bill, which in short basically prevents people who shouldn't have guns from having them. In Albany, we passed Reproductive Health Act, the DREAM Act, and a bunch of other really productive things that have been in the pipeline. Then we start the conversation on the rent laws and criminal justice and some of the other important issues. Let's see what else we got. Regarding the L train, I will be at the briefing tomorrow. Regarding Grand Street, I think that concern has been articulated to Polly Trottenberg, and DOT has been, equally frustrated about not knowing what we're doing here, but that's on everyone's radar. And regarding the issue with the smell, some people were complaining about noise coming from those ventilation systems because they're on all night. Per DEC's requirement, those need to be on continuously until they can eradicate whatever is going on. But if you have issues with a specific site, we can try and talk to them about the hours during which those are operating. One other thing is that we have been working with some of our colleagues, the North Brooklyn electeds, to address some air quality concerns in the area. Some people think that a lot of the development and construction has had implications on air quality, so we're talking to the health department and the DEP to kind of assess whether that's the case, and we'll go from there. I think that's it.
Thank you, Danielle. Is there any old business? Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Can I have a motion to adjourn? Good night, everybody. Get home safe.